Hey y'all, Kenya Nunez here, and welcome to the Forever Newlywed series, Real Talk by the Fire. Today, we're going to be talking about stress and how stress can affect your marriage. So, about 2 weeks ago, I was feeling very overwhelmed. There were so many things happening at one time. I felt like every area of my life was being hit in one way or another. I had a ton of projects due all at one time. So it was deadline after deadline after deadline. So I was really freaked out because of that. My to-do list was 3 weeks backed up, and for me, that is a big no-no. So it just felt like the to-do list was never getting finished. For some reason, I felt like I was letting everyone down that week. I felt like I was letting down my friends, I was letting down my family, and on top of that, I was just not being the kind of person to the people in my life that I'm accustomed to being. Then, here comes the kicker, my period came. And for me, my period doesn't just come, all of the symptoms of the world come with it. So my body was feeling tired. My body was just like, no. Then I had my acting class, my weekly acting class, and I had procrastinated the whole week before. So there was an expectation that I would be prepared, and I was not. Lastly, the ongoing struggle of me submitting to different jobs, different gigs, from my acting, and another week going by feeling like I wasn't getting booked for anything. So on top of being overwhelmed, I was also feeling not too good about myself as a person or as a professional. So with all of these things in mind, I just felt stressed, and I couldn't put a word to what I was feeling. So in retrospect, I can say it was stress, but in the moment, it just felt like the world was crashing down on me, right? So sometimes when I have a lot of stress in my life, again, I don't associate it with stress. I just feel like things are piling up on me. And because I don't have the wisdom or the know-how, or, I didn't pray about it, then it just becomes this big pile that I don't know how to deal with. So as an individual, we can feel like that, and maybe not too many people are affected. But when you're married, you're living with your spouse, they will immediately get the backlash of the stress that you're feeling and not really dealing with. So finally, I'm in our apartment, and my husband asked me something. I can't remember what he asked me, but whether it was the tone in which he asked me, or maybe it was a question that I didn't know the answer to, it just took me all the way over the edge. Like it must have just broken down all of my walls of resistance to the stress I was feeling. And I just shut down and I ran to our room, and I just kind of sat on the bed and just decided that was it. I just could not take it anymore. For all of my people who don't deal with anger in an explosive way, I'm the kind of person that I cry when I'm angry, or I cry when I don't have the words for what it is that I am feeling inside. So I was in the room, and my husband came in because he immediately was shocked by my response. He came in the room and he just quietly sat on the bed. He threw some covers, over me because he knows that, me being warm will make me just a little bit happier. And he wrapped his arms around me, and he just let me cry. He let me cry, he let me snot. He just let me experience whatever I needed to experience in that moment in order to just get some relief from what it was that I was feeling. And how often does stress make us feel that way? It makes us feel like we don't have an answer to what it is that we're feeling, or we don't have an answer for the situation that we're experiencing. And so we just bottle it up, and then at some point that bottle gets full and it just explodes. And so that's what happened to me. Finally, my husband asked me, what's wrong? What is going on with you? And at first, my answer was a bit incoherent. I don't even know if I understood exactly what I was saying, because it just blurted out of me. I was just like, I don't feel well, and I have this due, and I have this due, and my mom is thinking this, and my sister is sick, and everything kind of just blurted out. But when I took a deep breath and I sat back and really thought about what it is that he was asking me, I just started from the moment that I exploded and then worked my way backwards. So first, I let him know that what he said to me or how he asked that question, it made me feel defensive. It made me feel that, maybe his tone wasn't the way that I could receive it in that moment, or whatever he was asking me just didn't sit well with me. So I worked from there and I let him know how it made me feel. And from there, we talked about that one moment. And once we resolved that moment, and he apologized and I apologized, for how I responded, then we were able to work from there and touch on each thing that was causing me stress. So the one thing about stress is, and especially once you have become overwhelmed by it, you have to be able to kind of analyze what's going on, right? And from getting that understanding, then you can communicate to someone else what it is that's happening with you. And the great thing about communicating is that once you say what it is that has been going on the inside of you, or what's been going on in your mind, you give the other person the opportunity to relieve something even within themselves. Because I was so wrapped up in what was causing me stress that I didn't realize how much my husband was also feeling a similar kind of stress in his own life, with his work life, with different things, different conversations that he was having as well. By the time we finished talking, and it was a nice lengthy talk, we realized that there were so many external stresses around us that were making us both feel bogged down, that were making us both feel heavy, and we were not talking to each other about it. Now, yes, we come in the house, we talk, but talking sometimes is not the same thing as really communicating about what is going on with you. And so we realized that there were a lot of things that we weren't really communicating about. So he knew externally that I had acting class, and he knew that my period had started, and he knew that, I had a few deadlines, but he did not know the extent to which those things were affecting me. He didn't realize that it was starting to make me feel heavy. He didn't realize that I was starting to feel stressed. And at the same token, I didn't realize that work was making him feel, that he had so much going on that he couldn't even juggle it all. And so it was so good that we had this talk, but did it need to come at the expense of me blowing up, because of the amount of stress that I was feeling? So after all of that, we came to realize that there were a few things that we learned. Number one, we realized that we were not communicating consistently. Yes, we were talking to each other. It's not like we were on bad terms when this happened, but we have not been communicating about the deeper things that were going on. We were leaving things at the surface. So for example, don't just stop at, I had a busy day at work. Make sure you say why it was busy, who, was involved in that busy day. How you felt throughout the day. In the morning were you feeling okay, but then by the afternoon you felt overwhelmed. So by the time you got home, you didn't want to talk. And you don't realize that just breaking down, your day and breaking down how you felt can really open up the level of communication that you and your spouse can have. The second thing we learned is that we need to mark out a space of time every day to talk and communicate with each other. It's not enough whether you're in quarantine with your spouse or, you see them all the time. It's not enough to just see them. It's not enough to just be in the same space as them. Just like prayer, and just like we need to mark out a space of time to read our word or to pray or to call people, you have to mark out that space of time with your spouse. And that doesn't mean you spend an hour a day, diving into the depths of, what happened. That could mean 15 minutes every day. You guys sit down, you turn off your phones, and you focus solely on each other and what's going on in your life. And it doesn't have to be the bad. It doesn't have to be you only talk about the things that are stressing you or the things that are overwhelming you. It could also mean you talking about the great things that happened in that day, how that great thing made you feel, how you want to have another great day just like that. And you'll understand, you'll see how much that really grows how you guys communicate with each other. The third thing I learned was to stop going through these motions alone. You have a spouse, you're married, woo! And that means that you have someone to partner with you in life. You have someone to be the witness to what's happening in your life. But it's not enough for your spouse to just see and witness your life from the outside. They have to be a witness to what's going on in your heart, what's going on in your mind, what's going on in your spirit. They have to be a witness to all of those things, because they're not a mind reader. The same way you're not a mind reader, your spouse is not a mind reader. And so you have to be able to communicate and not just go through the motions of your daily routine and your daily grind and forget that you should sit down and talk to your spouse about what's really going on in your day. The last lesson we learned from this little moment was that we still have to put God into the situation. We had to invite God into that moment. We had to say, okay, God, what things was I missing leading up to this blow up? Because I'm sure there were moments when God was like, sit down, flush through your to-do list. Or God says, seek wisdom for what it is that, you need to get done. But I ignored it, or I didn't think that was God. I thought that was just some, fleeting moment. And what we learned is that we have to make sure that we are inviting God into our situations, into our daily conversation, but that we also realize that God put us in each other's lives for a reason. My husband is so capable and so equipped to handle anything that is going on in my life. And the same goes for me. And if we don't give each other the space, to give each other the opportunity to be there for each other, then these moments will happen more often than not. Stress will overwhelm us, fear will overwhelm us, anger will overwhelm us, because we're not inviting each other and inviting God into those moments, into those daily communications. So that's what happened, and that's what made me realize that stress can infiltrate the marriage. It can come from an external place and affect what's happening in your internal relationship. Sometimes we're on a short fuse and we don't even realize or understand why, but we can get through that moment if we just invite God and invite our spouse into that conversation and into that moment with us. Thank you so much again for joining me. I appreciate every single one of you that subscribes, that takes a moment to watch the videos. I hope to encourage you and make sure that you know that you're not alone, that you can do this, that you are doing the best that you can, and that we're just learning, as we go. So I'll catch you next time by the fire, right here on Forever Newlywed.